Good morning. I don't know if I mentioned this last week. We're going through Genesis, probably going to end somewhere around chapter 12. But yeah, that's why we keep reading Genesis 1, because we're talking about the beginning. So, in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. At the beginning of all things, you have everything and nothing all mixed together. There's no shape, no contents. It's empty, dark, swirling chaos. We can see in this text, the ancient Israelites didn't really like the sea. They didn't really go fishing much. They weren't seafarers. And you can see that here because this uncreated, chaotic state is represented by water, by dark, formless, and churning water. But a wind from God sweeps over the face of the waters. God is here, and creation begins. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God speaks, and out from the chaos crystallizes the light. Now the formless void lights up. God's first word is a word of separation. He separates the light from the darkness. And this word is also the establishment of time. Light is named day, and darkness is named night. So from that first word, all creation is ordered according to time. So there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So again, we see some ancient cosmology. The Israelites didn't like the sea, but they also believed that they understood that they were surrounded by it. In the beginning, dark, empty water was all there was, but God creates a space. He separates the water. He puts a dome in place to keep the water separated. So God establishes a calm, bright, clearly defined space apart from the chaos. God called the dome sky, and there was evening and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear." So God had held back the waters above with a dome. Now from the waters below, he pulls up the land. The seas are gathered into one place to make way for the earth, which is a calm, bright, solid, firmly established place. So here on earth, you can stand with your feet on the ground, and you can have the calm of the sky around you. Here on earth, you are kept apart from the chaos above and below. Then something else on the third day happens. God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." This newly created peaceful space produces life. Plants are brought forth, things that grow and cover and reproduce and spread. They are ordered by kind. Each plant is differentiated from the other plants according to what it is, so that even in spreading and covering the ground, the plants participate in the order that God has created. So in this way, the living things are like the pinnacle of the first 3 days. God has initiated time and established space. God has separated light from darkness, sky from water, and gathered the sea and the land. Order has been called out of chaos, and it's crowned with life. God sees that it is good, and it is good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth." So God had established an order and crowned it with life. And now God returns to something which had begun on the first day. God had separated the light from the darkness on day 1. And now he hangs the sun in the sky on day 4, which maintains the passing of day and night. Then God gives the moon a push and sends it into its orbit. God takes a handful of stars and he spreads them across the sky in all their multitude. These will keep time moving according to God's word. So on this 4th day, God establishes a category in creation, which is rulers, which participate in God's order by maintaining that order. Sun, moon, and stars rule over the night and day, so that God's separating of light from darkness will never undo itself, and the passing of time will continue to differentiate each moment from the next, as God intended. And there was evening, and there was morning. Sunset, sunrise. The 4th day. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. Things had been calm in the creation. Then suddenly, the seas and the skies are swarming. They're full of life. The sea and the sky had been divided on the 2nd day. Now God speaks, and these spaces are filled. Everything is moving. Everything is teeming with life. There's fish jumping and splashing. Birds are fluttering and singing. But all this movement isn't chaos. This is life. It's ordered. It's purposeful. It's things that are living according to their kind. Life is getting everywhere, and it's good. And then God does something else new. God had filled the seas and skies with life. Now he blesses them. God commands the living things to go on living, to keep doing what he created them to do. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. What God created them to do, they are to keep doing. They will keep swarming, keep soaring, keep on filling the sky and the sea. This is what God made them for, and it's good. And there was evening and there was morning, the 5th day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. So God, on the 6th day, returns to the land, which was so far the most firmly established and non-chaotic space, which had already produced life, and declares that here there will be even more life. Again, calm is interrupted by movement and activity. Animals burst forth, creeping, crawling, jumping around, and calling out to each other. The animals also participate in God's order. They continue in God's work of filling creation with life. God has created a place for life to flourish. And now God has filled that place with life, and it's good. God sees what he has created, and he declares that it is good. But day 6 goes on. We read that, "Then God said, 'Let us make humans in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the cattle and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.'" Most of what happens here on day 6, after the creation of the animals, is stuff that we've already seen in this story. The humans are alive. God gives them life. They are differentiated from non-being, like all the other living things. And the humans are given a purpose. They're supposed to rule over the earth. They're supposed to have dominion, which is just like the sun and the moon and the stars, which are supposed to govern the passing of time. And they're charged with multiplying and filling the earth, just like all the other animals were commanded to do according to their kind. But humans, we're told, are of a different kind. They're not according to their own kind. Humans are created in the image of God, according to God's likeness. Humanity is the crown jewel of God's creation. All that God has done so far has led to this. Humans are placed on the earth to fill the earth and to rule over what God has created. The image of God is like God's signature on what he has made. All creation shows the majesty and goodness of God, and none more clearly than his own image. Following this, things begin to wrap up. The order that has been called out of chaos is now full. What was undifferentiated non-being and chaos is now teeming with life. All kinds of living things are everywhere. What God has created to produce life is also sufficient to reproduce that life. God gives every green plant as food for all the living things so that they can live and flourish and multiply and fill the earth with life to show the goodness and glory of the Creator. This is an ordered existence. Living things are living together, receiving all that they need from the Creator, existing in harmony to the praise of the one who created. And it's good. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day, God finished all of the work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work he had done. On the seventh day, we see the establishment of the final order, the sacred order. God makes every seventh day holy, a day of worship, when the Creator sits down to delight in all the goodness of what he has created. And all of the good creatures delight in the goodness of the one who created them. It's a day of rest in which the creation pauses its busyness to behold with wonder that the chaos of nothingness is held back by the Creator's word, that the order with which God had established goes on without our striving, that it's all very good. So every seventh day, the creation rests with delight as God intended in God's loving, life-giving presence. And here at the end of the creation story, we see that the seventh day is the culmination of what God has done. Worship and rest with God is the point. It's the reason God creates in the first place. The earth is the place where God sits down to be with what he has created. The story of creation is the story of God building a place of worship. It's a temple. It's God's temple, which shows the power and majesty and transcendence of the God it is built for. A temple is built to produce awe and wonder, reverence and delight. It draws those who enter into worship. And the temple is the place where God is. God dwells in the temple. It's the place where worshipers go to worship God. The point of all this, separating and gathering sky, land, and sea, animals, birds, fish, and us, the point of all this is worship, to live and delight in God, to rest in God's goodness. That's the purpose for which God has created. The earth is the place in which God is praised. So then when we find as the crowning of creation the image of God placed in the center of the temple that God has created, we discover that who we are has a lot to do with worshiping God. I think the ancient people of God would catch what we miss. The image of God in God's temple is the most tangible representation of God's presence, which directs worshipers in awe and wonder of who God is. God is clear that his people are not to make images of God because they are themselves made in the image of God. They demonstrate God's presence and goodness on the earth. So there's something good about God's creation being what it is. We can see this. We can feel some of the delight that God takes in what he has created. We can see the greatness and love of our Creator. I think of like when you go out into a park, or even you go to the White Shell and go on a hike, you see like life is just everywhere. You have these rocks, but like there's grass shooting up from them. Life gets everywhere, and it's amazing. And when we see trees just being trees, it's good. When they reach up to the sky and they're just tall, it's good. For a few years growing up, we had sheep. This, in terms of the economics of it, was a failed experiment, but it was a good experience. And I loved seeing the lambs in spring, running around and jumping, just being alive and loving it. It's good. And when we see humans living together, building things, loving each other, laughing, sharing, praising God for all of it, it's good. It's so good. This life as God's creation, being what we are as an act of worship, is living in the temple of God. So then we see that humans, created in the image of God, placed in God's temple, are sort of like worship leaders. We have the job of ensuring that all things that God has created bring praise to the God who created them. And so there's a lot of ideas on what that means. And I think it's hard to fully capture that, but there's sort of like an aspect of tending and nurturing, encouraging what God has created to be what it is, because what it is praise to God. Some people have pointed out that at the end of humanity, that we see in the book of Revelation, we see we see a city. And this suggests that there's some potential in creation. There's sort of like technological possibilities that humans can unlock that promote the flourishing of life everywhere. And it probably means that there's some responsibility towards social order, ensuring that humans are living together in an ordered place that promotes the flourishing of all. But one way or another, like I said, it's hard to fully capture what that means. But one way or another, being made in the image of God means that we are made to participate in God's good order. We are created to fill the earth with worship of the Creator. So how are we doing at that? There's something wrong with us, isn't there? These ideas of being what you are and participating in God's order are even unclear to us. We usually don't know exactly what that looks like. And throughout history, people have used the charge of dominion to back up their own goals of domination, using God's good creation for their own glory. We subjugate and dehumanize other people, not in worship of the Creator, but for worship of ourselves. So this morning we find ourselves in a world where every day the sacred things of God's glory are used for our own evil ambitions. And it seems like the chaos is creeping back in, decreating what God has made good. Who else can do this? What else in the created order of God can direct praise meant for God back onto itself? What else can look up at the beauty and majesty of the created order and see the skies lit up with the bright colors of a sunset, or see towering thunderheads crackling with energy, mountains bursting from the ground, reaching into the sky higher than anything we could ever build, countless stars at night, animals of all kinds singing and playing, living and loving, being alive? Who can deny the beauty and the majesty of what has been created? Who can deny the beauty of the one who has created all this? Who can see this and believe that it's meaningless, that there's no purpose, that all we can do is live for ourselves, struggle to survive long enough to feel good about it? Which of God's creatures can see what God has created and yet still refuse to worship the Creator? It's just us, isn't it? So is it any wonder then that when Jesus came to Jerusalem, he becomes angry in the temple, the place which was the sacred site of worship of our Creator? Yet it had been filled with money changers, people getting rich off of those who just wanted to worship God. Jesus flips their tables. He chases out those who exploit God's temple for their own gain. Jesus clears away things that corrupt and dehumanize the image of God, so that the house of God can be called a house of prayer, a house of worship. Jesus is the one who has fulfilled what the image meant to be, the one whose being directs all creation to the Father in worship. The true and perfect image of God frees all of creation to sing songs of worship to our Father. A number of years ago, I was given a tour of a shelter for homeless people, and they had a clothing store there. And it seems like a small thing, but it was remarkable. The clothes were free, but it was set up with shelves and display racks, organized by size and style, and there was a till where they would bag things up for you, just like at a retailer. The lady who gave the tour explained this is so that the people who need clothes can receive them with dignity. People whom society otherwise affords no status or worth could go there and receive what they need in a way that does not condescend, but gives dignity and treats people as the wonderful creation of God that they are. It's a choice to see people as what God created them to be. And I think that this and a lot of the other things that a shelter like this does is sort of like clearing the temple. It's sort of like clearing away the things that dehumanize and prevent the creation from being what we are, so that we can all join together in the praise of God our Creator. So, that means that the gospel is inherently political. It's the announcement of the arrival of the kingdom of heaven, that the order for which God created everything is now being established again, where the blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. In the kingdom of heaven, all creation is free to be what it was created for, which is praise and worship of the God who has created all things. Amen.